I didn't want to know what was in that vent. I don't want to be anything other than what I've been trying to be lately. Hey loves, welcome back. In today's video, I'll be telling you the story on how I lived in a haunted house. So let's just get started. So this is the story on how I lived in a haunted house. Let's rewind about 10 years ago. I was 10 turning 11 and we were moving and we found a house. It was an older house, but it was redid so it looked like modern. The whole house was like refinished besides the basement. The basement was kept the same. It was just like a room. It was super creepy, but it was just a cement room. Well, everything else was redid and it looked modern, but you could definitely still tell it was an older house, if you get like what I'm saying. This house was near cemeteries and the previous owner worked in a funeral home. That was probably a red flag, but you know, we ignored that one. My mom, sister, and I lived in that house for about a month while our dad stayed at our older house so it wouldn't be like left alone, and then after that month he was gonna come and move in. So while living there we realized that you were never really alone, if that makes sense. Like, you could be completely in the house by yourself, but you would never feel like you were alone. It would just always feel like somebody was with you or like watching you, and it's just super creepy even just talking about it. You would always hear noises, like weird noises that weren't just a house making noises. You know, like older houses, they just make noises. It's just like a thing. But like these noises were different. Like you would hear people talking when nobody was in the house. Your TV was off, and like, how do you explain that? So the first night came around and it was nighttime. We didn't have our furniture yet because it wasn't delivered. We just had a couple mattresses, like blankets and pillows, and a few boxes. So my mom, sister, and I decided we were just gonna sleep in the living room because it was less scary all sleeping there than like, you know, being in our rooms by ourselves. So my mom waited for my sister and I to fall asleep, and now it's about anywhere between midnight and 2 in the morning. And she decides she wants to unpack the kitchen. So she's in the kitchen and she's unpacking everything, and she starts hearing people talking, and she's confused because we don't have a TV yet. Like, we just moved in. No radio. It's like 2 in the morning, nobody's outside. She checks, nobody's out there. She's like, what the hell is that? Who's talking? And she starts to realize it's coming from the basement, but it's like muffled. So it sounds like they're super far away, but like the noise is coming from the basement. It sounds like there's a party happening in the basement, but it's all like muffled, if that makes sense. So she's like, what the hell? Nothing's in the basement that would be making that type of noise. And there's sure as hell nobody in the basement having a party. So she walks towards the basement steps and she gets about 2 steps down and it just stops. It goes dead silent. And she's like, that's super weird, what the hell? And she just kind of like goes back up the stairs because she sure as hell is not gonna walk down those stairs to see what was down there. You know, she's like, okay. She goes back up and she just finishes unpacking, and she just still keeps hearing noises. Like she could hear the boxes moving and being like dragged, and then as soon as she would walk towards the stairs it would stop. Ew, that's so creepy. But she just kind of brushes it off and is like, whatever, like I'm probably tired. So she goes to sleep, and all of this just keeps happening every single day. Like, we just hear people in the basement. We go to the basement to check, nobody's there, and this would just like continuously happen every single day. Oh, okay, this happened probably a couple days after we moved in. I was in the house alone and I was unpacking my room, so I was like sitting on the ground and I was folding clothes, and I started hearing like a weird noise, and I looked over and it was coming from my vent. And the vents in this house weren't like normal vents that are like small, you know, they were like big vents that were on like the bottom of the wall. So they were super creepy, and I like was like, what the hell is that? So I walk closer to the vent and I sit in front of it, and I'm like, this is gonna make me sound like I'm freaking, I was like, hello? And I heard the scratching. It was like something was in the vent scratching and like crawling or something. I don't know what the hell it was. And I was like, is there anybody there? And it got so loud that it sounded like whatever was in that vent was about to be in front of like the grate of the vent on my wall. So I got up and I ran out of the freaking room, down the steps and out the door. I did not want to know what was in that vent. Like, I'm not saying there was like a ghost in my vent.
There was a ghost in my vent, not clickbait.
Like, I'm not saying that there was a ghost in my vent, but what we were hearing in the house and what was happening, I didn't want to know what was in that vent. So I just ran and didn't go in my room for days after because I was so scared of what was in my vent. We're probably living there like a week or two, and we start to realize that the basement's weird. There's something off about it. The size of the basement didn't make sense to the size of the house, if that makes sense. Like, when you walk down the steps of the basement, it was like half the basement was missing. Like, it didn't make sense. The size of the basement was way smaller than the size of the house. It was just like half the basement was gone. And then we realized that 3 of the basement walls were like old cement and 1 wall was new. And on that new wall, there was an opening about halfway up the wall, about like 4x4, like, I don't know. And it was just like open. And when it was just like always so dark in that like opening that like when you looked, it just like looked like it went on forever. And there was like no end. But like we never went and like freaking got a flashlight and looked inside because we didn't want to know what was in there or like where it went to, because have you ever seen a scary movie? Did not want to know what was happening in that freaking hole in the wall. We were just never gonna go down there. We only went down there when we had to do like laundry. That was it. Other than that, nobody was going in that basement. We unpacked the whole house and left everything that was in the basement as is because nobody wanted to go down there and unpack it. Like, it was so scary. We had a cat and a dog, and they were both super chill pets. Like, they weren't rowdy, they didn't run around and like cause ruckus and stuff. And they weren't scared of anything, but they would never go in that basement unless somebody was with them. Like, they would sit at the top of the steps and then just like look down the stairs, but they would never go down the steps. So the month was up and our dad was gonna move in. My mom told him all about like what she was hearing and what was happening throughout the whole month we were living there, and he just kind of like brushed it off and was like,
the house isn't haunted, blah blah blah.
And then, you know, because he didn't believe in it, so he just brushed it off and he moved in. The first night he slept there, he heard the noises in the basement. He heard the people talking, he heard the boxes being moved, and that's when he realized like there's something happening in this house, like there's something off. It was just like weird, like the house was just super eerie. Nothing bad ever happened in that house, but like it was just, everything just felt off. Like you always felt like you were being watched. You would always hear noises and like weird noises that like wouldn't be happening. Like, how do you explain away hearing people in your basement talking and like having a party when nobody's in the basement? That's so weird. Then we moved. We lived there for about 4 months, I think, and then we just moved. It was just a really weird experience living in that house. Okay, that's so weird. My camera just stopped recording, but okay, I'm like super scared. So yeah, well, then we moved after 4 months. It was just super weird in that house. Didn't like it. We left. So we moved into my new house and I started getting panic attacks every day, like super bad, where like I wouldn't be able to breathe. It was just a really bad experience. I wasn't sleeping at night and I was just super on edge all the time, and I never experienced this before in my entire life, and it was just weird. This went on for like a couple months and then it just stopped. Like I mentally just fought it off and just like was like, stop, like we're not doing this. I don't know what it was, and I'm not saying it was paranormal and like anything like that, but I just thought it was super weird that as soon as we moved, that happened. Like, that's super weird. How does that, I don't understand like what it was. This story is definitely super anticlimactic. Like, I don't even know how to end it because I don't have answers. Like, we moved and that was it. Like, I don't know if we would have lived there longer, if anything else would happen, but we just lived there for those 4 months and it was just weird. And that's it. Like, I don't know how to end this, but that was the story on how I lived in a haunted house. So if you guys like videos like this, then give this a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, turn on my post notifications so you never miss an upload, and I will see you in my next video.
All I have to do is think of me and I'll be so mine.